we skipped the most important one. Um, Brian. He was a huge baby. I mean, he was over 9 pounds, and they didn't take him early, but he was way over 9 pounds, like nine something. And he was the pride of Mark's heart. He always wanted a brother, and now he had a son. And so he loved that little boy. He Brian would follow Mark everywhere. And I can remember as a little kid, when we were still living in the Seattle area over there, and we had this little house. And Mark would help mow the lawn, and Brian would be holding his wheels, his part, holding up like this, kind of things. And Mark loved that. He loved doing that. And he still has a really strong bond with Ryan that I think probably because he was the one we had to learn on how to be parents. And you start to look back and think, man, what did I do to this kid? I mean, this kid did not like heat. He did not like to be in hot clothes. I put him in footed pajamas all the way up to here, and I'd go in his bedroom and he would just be like, I can't breathe. But he never complained. But Brian was also the baby when I was carrying him, who, whenever I would get into a shower or something would, strike my stomach, he would just wiggle all over the place. It just stimulated him. And so he'd be kicking all over. Of course, it was fun for Mark to see that. And so that. And then Rebecca. Rebecca was one of those calm babies. Brian did have some colic, but his really only lasted about not so long. And Rebecca, I don't even think she really had colic, but she loved Brian. She did. She'd follow Brian all over. I have some really cute pictures of them little when Brian was pulling her by her leg. She was spread out on the floor, and he was pulling her by the leg, and he had some big daddy boots on. He was being a daddy. And so he was pulling Rebecca across the rug. So they were probably pretty close. Rebecca's my calm person. She's like, yeah, it'll do. She always just, we don't need to worry about those things. And she tends to, you know, be more level-headed probably than I am. Mark is very much that way. She has his temperament. So, and then Jason was my hardest baby with colic.
What's colic?
Colic is where it usually comes worse at night than any other time, but their stomachs bother them and they hurt and there's discomfort. And he was colicky a lot, Jason was, as a baby. However, he was also the first in our family to walk. Well, first of all, to crawl and to walk and to do all these other things. I mean, he would talk. he would climb things as a little kid. Just I'd go out there and there'd be a ladder, and he would have a Tinker Toy box over his head climbing up the ladder. And I'd think, is that fun? You could fall. And so he was more of a challenge as a baby. And then he became a challenge as a teenager. However, nobody could make me laugh like Jason, especially when he got older. Because I was reading this book that says that what you're supposed to do is reflect back to that person. You seem sad, or you seem angry, or something like that, to reflect back their feelings. And one time I said to, it wasn't Jason, it was somebody else. I said, are you something about, are you angry? Are you upset or what, or something? But Jason says, oh, now I can't remember the phrase. He always say, oh, I see, you sound really upset. And Jason around the corner would say, you think, Pa? And he would just, he would come back with those quips. So, and he would make me laugh. And I remember as a teenager, I put him on restriction more than any kid of ours. I restricted him, I'm sure he's told you this, from the library. He didn't.
Mm-mm.
Because he wouldn't go to the library to work on things. He went to the library to meet his friends. I said, well, you're not getting any homework done. And so you can't go to the library anymore. So he tells everybody, my mom restricted me from the library. And then, of course, you know the history of him almost not graduating because you don't know. I went up to him because he'd gotten a warning about that he needed a certain amount of credits or he wouldn't be graduating. So I said, Jason, I'm going to come and talk to your English teacher. It was in English, obviously. And we're going to find out what we're supposed to do. And I made an appointment with the teacher. And I showed up on the steps going towards it. And Jason saw me. Oh, guys, yeah, I forgot. My mom's coming with me to talk to my teacher. I'll have to see you later for something or whatever. And so we go in there, and I find out that he just has not that much to do. It's more of sitting down and writing, because he's a thinker. And so at that time we had a little PC Junior. So I would just type out what he would be thinking instead of having him write it out. And so he passed his class. So he ended up graduating. So I was very proud. Jason, I should be wearing that cap and gown. Come and get a picture with your mom. It wouldn't be right for me not to be in your graduation picture.
So then we get to Maria.
Maria was over 10 pounds because she and Myron and Sue's firstborn were due the same day. And Myron's first boy, my brother, he and Sue lost their baby. And I'm not really quite sure what the problem was. I know it was somewhere. But they ended up taking him home to die. And so it was the summer, and she was born in August. And so I had retained a lot of water. So when Maria was born, she looked huge. She looked like Jackson did when he was born. He did not look like he was a sick baby. So, and neither did she. But the thing is, she lost weight so quickly because it was all water. And so then she ended up with a lot of beautiful curly hair at that point. She curses it now, but I really quite like it. Her hair, she could do with curls or braiding or anything that just looks perfect for her. And she's also the child who always was very sensitive to what I was feeling. If I was really quiet in the car, what's the matter, Mom? You look sad, or you look, whatever. And I'd say, no, I'm just thinking hard about things. And she'd worry, but she was always the one. She was also the one who had the hardest when we had told Brian he had to follow certain rules or he couldn't live at home. And so he went over and lived with his friends, the Buckleys.
That's Jason.
Oh, that's Jason. Well, who are
Right?
we on? Yeah.
Oh, well, you said Brian.
Oh, no. That's we're talking about Maria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Maria was the one who used to write him letters and pictures and send it over to him because we knew the Buckley family from the time we moved into that house, that Kent house. And she would write him notes and pictures to remember our family by. She was always kind of a very sensitive person. She didn't like people to be sad. And so she was always in tune with people, whether they were sad or happy or whatever, which makes her a really a sensitive person to people's feelings. And also Jason has that, where you just kind of sense where people are in their life, or if they're, she kind of has that. I think sometimes she takes too much on herself to feel like she has to entertain everybody. That when, I said, Katie can come over and they can do whatever they want. They don't have to be entertained by you. I said, there might not be any cousins there, but we'll be there. and Blake will be there some months at the time. So, but she always thinks about, okay, I gotta, and she's been in Young Women so much, Maria, that she's very into entertaining that age group and, making sure they're busy and doing all these activities. And I'm kind of like Rebecca in that sense. When I was Young Women's president, I was the organizer, and I had counselors who did all the fun stuff because I was good at organizing, but people like to hang around my counselors, and I thought, I'm so glad I have them for counselors in the presidency, because I was not a happy teenager most of my life, so I never really had positive memories of my own teenager life. And so, but Maria has that ability to bring that out, mm-hmm. and to sense that in people. James was my New Year's Eve baby, but he was born in the morning, not in the evening. And he was an easy, I don't think he had colic a lot. He may have been allergic to some kinds of things, I don't know. The one thing that I remember is after he was born, not too long after, they noticed that he had nystagmus, where his eyes move back and forth, and it's benign. It's not anything, but it made it hard for him to be able to focus. He'd have to pull his eyes way over here to stretch those muscles to focus. And so we had him tighten some of the muscles on one side and leave him on the other side so that he would be able to. He also tried so hard to walk. And he would get up and walk. He would have been an early walker, but he did not have, he had what you call then was, what is it called?
Like a walker? What do you mean?
I mean, he couldn't walk. He had to learn to balance because he did not have control.
Like core strength?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. He did not have that. He would walk but he had to keep walking until he found something that he walked into. he couldn't stop and balance.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a, I don't know, that kind of an issue is with his balance. And then he had the eyes and the nystagmus. And when he got older, they did tell him, that he could have the surgery, and we had that done. He also broke his nose one time, so he has had nose. And apparently when he was going under surgery to have his nose fixed and stuff like that, he was very combative when he came out of that's his little James. They were, all of a sudden I heard them in the room saying something about some number that they call when they are having problems in one of the rooms, and he was coming out of his anesthesia and he didn't know where he was, and so he was very kind of combative, kind of thing, till he figured out what had happened, and then he did. But he was also my child, James, who wanted to do everything right. I didn't know at that time that he had OCD. I learned that actually after his mission. I mean, they tried to put him on some different kind of medication until we got finally diagnosed what he really has. And he says, and I don't really like the medication, but I love the therapy that went with it, the mental kind of therapy that kind of gets you through that. So he uses it. He knows how to work himself out of that. And he, as a little kid, he would go up to a counter and pay for everything because he just loved to do that. And he would go up and pay for it, and the other kids wouldn't even go up to the counter or ask, but he would. And he would do that. I don't know at what point he got OCD and social anxiety. I'm not sure where that came in because I didn't understand it as much then. And I look back now and I have some regrets. But I wish I did done things better. I went swimming therapy with him. We did a lot of different types of therapy to help him build that strong. They did a lot of, putting him on a ball or something and then moving the ball and him having to learn to center and catch his balance and stuff like that. And that helped him a lot. So he did that, but he liked to do everything right. If we were having family home meeting, he wanted to know who was giving the prayer. This is what he would do. He would write down a list. Who's going to do the prayer? Who's going to do the refreshments? Who's going to pick the songs? Those kind of things that we did as a family. And then we do a family meeting, which is called Family Home Evening now. And he was very serious about that job. And he would stand up. If you remember our Kent house down in the basement, there's that fireplace hearth. He'd stand up there like a pro and announce what things were going to happen for his meeting that he had. Who was going to give the spiritual thought? Who was going to, be assigned to the refreshments or whatever, that kind of stuff. Do that kind of thing. And then I don't even remember what we did after that. We just mostly had fun. Just because we were following the rules, and James wanted to follow the rules. So he was really good that way.
Tell me about your experience as a mom.
Well, first of all, with my very first child, that kid never had a bib on that wasn't clean. He would spit up, it'd change bib. I went through more bibs, more over the shoulder, because he did kind of spit up a little bit and all of that kind of stuff, but he never saw. He was a very well taken care of baby, just because I only had one and I could focus on him. Probably as a regret was that I didn't spend as much time enjoying him as keeping him clean. And I probably should have just, the heck with it. But, if he spit up or something, this carpet that we had in the Kent, one of the different houses that we lived in, it had a green brocade type. And if you spit up on it, it was hard. You had to get it cleaned up right away or it left a mark. And so I worried about that. I was probably more worried about showing him off because he was such a cute baby with Brian. And Mark was so proud of it. So I knew I'd made Mark happy. And so that's one of the things I wished I'd have done better, is just spend more time interacting with them instead of trying to keep him clean all the time. My kid never knew what spit up was. I always had it cleaned up before, it did any damage. By the time Rebecca came, she was a very easy baby. She would sit in the middle of the floor and could entertain herself with whatever. You give her a bunch of toys, she'd sit there and play with all the toys and whatever. She loved it when Brian would come in the door, because Brian would always grab her by the foot and drag her around, or something like that. And so I was probably more relaxed and did better with girls than I probably did with boys at that time. Or else maybe my boys were given for me to grow. I think that's it. I think I had something to learn. And I know Mark did, because Mark lived an ideal life. There was never any arguing, no fighting, no disagreements, because he was the only boy in the family and they doted on him. And so that's the way, that's the way it was back in those days. Jason was my first at everything. Crawling, walking. He'd stretch for a kitty cat, and next thing you know, he'd be up on his feet trying to get around to touching that cat. And that would motivate him. And he crawled early. He walked the soonest of all my kids. And after he got over the colic, he was a real active boy. He always was really an active kid. Brian was more of a pleaser. He wanted to say whatever you wanted to hear. Jason gave it to me the way he felt. I got that feeling. I knew when I got an answer from Jason, even as a kid. I knew, he never really lied to me. He may keep things from me, but he never, when I ever asked him anything, he'd tell me. Jason would be very honest in that way, and I remember that. I remember him just being I remember he had the cutest hair. He did. I'll have to show you some little pictures with Jason in them. His school pictures are adorable. I'm sure you've seen the one with the Seahawks. Yeah, little thing. But all of his pictures were cute. Even as a teenager, he has this sassy look on his face. But he was cool. Even with his sassy look. He was going to be one of those cool kids, and he was. Jason is also the one who helped Maria from being so shy. Because everybody knew Jason at school. In fact, one time the school teacher said to Jason, "Is Brian your brother?" And he said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, I liked Brian." But Jason was one of those who, no matter where he was, people would come to him. I don't know if we're getting out of order here or not. But they would put him back by the pencil sharpener. I don't know if you ever heard that story. Because he was disturbing other people. He was kind of a goof off, and he could make little cracks, and jokes about things. And so they put him back by the pencil sharpener, and that's where he had his desk. Well, guess what? Everybody had to sharpen their pencils all the time. He was known as when they go to the pencil sharpener, which meant you want to go talk to Jason. So it was funny.
Tell me about Dooch.
Dude, oh my gosh. They brought this dog home from a neighbor. We were told it was a little bulldog. And it was not. He was like part Great Dane. It looked like it was. Nobody had the physique of this dog. And Jason could get Dooch to get really angry at people. He could rile him up. And we had a little boy who was a cute little black boy who would not come to our house if the dog was out. Because Jason would get him all riled up and fighting like he was really mad and angry. This dog never did anything, ever bit anybody. He licked your face before he'd do anything else. As soon as he got you down and you wrestled and you were done, he'd be up on his hands licking your face like, I want to play some more. So, but he came home, he was smaller than a pop bottle because he was the runt of the family, they told me. Well, this dog, I said, you have to take care of it. Religiously, Jason would come home from school, take that little dog on a walk all the way around our yard, which was a big yard, but he would just follow just Jason, and he grew so fast. Every time, I don't know, Mark says, gee, every day when I come home, this dog has grown to inches. And he, you've seen him, he's a big dog. We don't really know his breed. We just kind of guess at, well, he did have a cute little bulldog face once.
Yeah. Once.
So we don't know after that. But he was a beloved dog. He knew people's feelings, that dog. He knew that Jason was playtime. He was very good about Brian, just hanging around Brian, just snuggling up to him. And he was so good to Maria, except, I don't know if you remember or heard of water beds. Well, he used to like to try to get on the waterbed with Maria, which he did for quite a while, but as he got older, it hurt him to his hips and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they gave us some medication and stuff that he could take for it. And we thought that he had this funny thing growing out of his forehead, and so we worried about that. They said, no, it's just a little DNA thing going on. It's just got a little tooth. Yeah, kind of like a tooth or something on his forehead, but I don't know what it really was. But it went away, and